Hello, dear friend. Welcome to Books and More, where we carefully select the original key points from great books, helping you save precious time while preserving the core values. In the hustle and bustle and pressures of the modern world, we sometimes feel lost, exhausted, and yearn for a moment of quiet reflection to understand ourselves and live more mindfully. Today, Books and More would like to introduce you to the book The Meaning of Gain and Loss by Lya Luft. These aren't rigid dogmatic lessons, but rather sincere reflections, a gentle dialogue about the process of growing up, about time, and the deepest experiences of human existence. Is growing up simply about aging and loss, or is it an opportunity to discover our true beauty? How should we confront the harsh laws of nature, loneliness, and the finiteness of time so as not to lose the joy of living? And does happiness truly exist even when we are on the other side of life's slope or facing family tragedies? My dear friend, life's journey is a blend of joy and sorrow, of reunion and separation. But it is in this constant change that we truly become complete human beings, capable of loving, forgiving, and cherishing every present moment. I hope you will find solace and inspiration through these pages. Let's begin exploring the meaning of gain and loss now. Searching for the tone. You might wonder why this book exists. In truth, these pages grew from notes I made years ago, continuing themes I have visited before and will likely visit again until I pen my final lines. I do not call this a thesis, for I have no interest in a solemn academic tone, nor is it a novel or a teaching manual. I have nothing to preach. Instead, think of this as a conversation, a summons for you to approach and reflect with me. Everything written here stems from my own journey of maturing, a path paved with both glory and shadow. Through it all, I have realized that life is not merely a collection of pains and losses. It is also filled with immense love and sweet fruits. The balance between what we lose and what we gain depends largely on what we are willing to embrace. I once told a pianist friend that I was searching for the tone of this new book. We laughed to find we were seeking the same thing. What is the tone of a life? Is it a melody of sorrow or a rhythm of joy? Is it lived on the noisy surface or in the deep waters below? The melody of our existence depends partly on us. We are the ones who must tune the instrument before we can play it. I sit here seeking the specific sound of these pages, feeling it as a whisper to you, inviting you to help me in this conquest. At times, my observations may seem harsh. I admit that we can be cowardly, fearing the price of a happiness that is within our reach. Yet, I am one of those who believe that happiness is real, that love exists, and that life is not defined solely by betrayal or missed chances. We must learn the discipline of being happy. In our relationships, we often strive for an impossible total fusion, forgetting that the essence of being human is a solitary journey of discovery. However, when we open a window to another person through a look or a gesture, we share a rare and beautiful connection. I do not write these words as idle daydreams. I am a woman of my time, witnessing the reality of pain, conflict, and mortality. I write about the mistake of blaming fate for everything when we play such a large part in our own choices and apathy. We must decide how to use our time, which is the only reality we possess. My view of life opposes the common belief that aging is purely loss. We are transformation. We are a process. The passing years bring proliferation and development, not just limitation. We must be masters of our journey, not frightened animals running without direction. If you and I can find a shared rhythm in these pages, this monologue will transform into a dialogue, and my work will have achieved its true purpose. Chapter 1: The Invitation. I am not the sand where the wind shapes its wings, nor the bars outside a window. I am not a stone rolling with the tides of life, simply resting on the shore. I am the ear pressed against the shell of my own existence. I am the hand of creation and destruction, both master and servant, and I am a mystery. I invite you to join me in writing the script for the theater of human life, a play titled Me and Destiny. These two forces do not always agree, perhaps because we do not yet fully understand ourselves. The thoughts I share here stem from my own process of maturation. They are born from moments of glory and periods of darkness. Along this journey, I have realized that life is not filled only with pain and loss, but also with immense love and sweetness. The balance between what we lose and what we gain depends largely on what we are willing to receive. I recently met a friend who was a brilliant pianist. I told him I had just started writing a new book, but was still searching for its tone. We laughed when we realized we were both seeking the same thing. Tone exists in language and art, but every person also has a tone to their life. We must ask ourselves what kind of sound we wish our lives to have. Is it a sad melody in a minor key, or is it bright and rhythmic? Is our existence shallow, or does it reach into the deep waters beneath the surface? The melody of our lives depends partly on us. In this great orchestra, we are both the ones who tune the instruments and the artists who perform. I sit here before my computer, thinking about the tone of these pages. I feel it as a whisper sent to you, asking you to come and think with me, to help me in this conquest. Although these are personal notes, I may sometimes seem cruel. I might say that we are important and capable, but also that we can be useless and mediocre. I might say we could be happier than the lives we accept, but we are often too cowardly to pay the price. Yet, I am one of those who believe that happiness and love are real. Life is not just betrayal or missed opportunities. It is also kindness, friendship, compassion, and decency. As long as we exist, we must learn the discipline of living happily. In our relationships, we often try to do the impossible. We seek absolute unity, but human nature is solitary. We cannot share everything. However, in a conversation or a moment of silence, in a look or a loving gesture, a small window opens. The performer and the spectator can admire the view together. I write because I want to encourage you to search with me, to question what we can do with the limited time we have. Life, until the very last thought, is a process of self-transformation. I am not writing daydreams. I am a woman of my time, and I want to witness my era with all my faculties. I use my imagination to write about pain, doubt, contradiction, and nobility. I write about illness and death, and the regret of saying too much or staying silent when we should have spoken. I also write about how we blame fate for what happens to us. We play a significant role in our own choices and indifference. We stand between engagement and compromise, hope and doubt. Above all, we must decide how to use and enjoy our time, which is the only reality we possess. We are often too naive about the accidents and tragedies that can steal our love, our health, or our peace. Because of this awareness, my view of a human life opposes the common wisdom. We are transformation. We are a process. The passing of years brings growth and development, not just loss or limitation. With this perspective, we become masters rather than slaves. We are human beings, not small, frightened animals running away without knowing why. If you and I can find the same rhythm, this monologue will become a dialogue. That is how my work achieves its purpose. Chapter 2: What I See in the Mirror. When I look into the mirror, I see a reflection that is a complex mixture of history and hope. I see the curve of a lip or the shape of a hand that was given to me by those who created me. Yet I am constantly searching for my own face. I am looking for the person I desire to be, the one with wings who can fly beyond the shadows cast by my ancestors. We are all born from a collision of opposites, products of mistakes and love, and we carry these legacies in our very bodies. However, what we find in that reflection should be more than just a genetic echo. It should be the result of our own construction. I often think of our development as the building of a house. The foundations are laid in our childhood, cemented by the way we were looked at and the words spoken to us. As we grow, we raise the walls, and in our later years, we place the roof. This structure is the home of our soul and body. It is not a static monument, but a living project. We are not puppets manipulated by our pasts, but warriors capable of thought and decision. While the hands of those who raised us helped mix the mortar, the task of finishing the building belongs to us alone. We must decide what is worth keeping and what must be discarded to let the light in. It is easy to fall into the trap of blaming our origins for our current unhappiness. We might point to a lack of love, a harsh word, or a moment of neglect from our parents. But as we mature, we must realize that our parents were simply ordinary people, struggling with their own limitations and doing the best they knew how. To linger and blame is to remain a child. To grow up is to accept that while we may have been born on shaky ground, we are responsible for the path we walk now. We are the artists of our own lives, painting on a canvas that was prepared by others, but is now ours to fill. I recall the gardens of my youth and how they taught me about survival. Some plants were naturally strong, while others needed constant care. Humans are much the same, but we possess the unique gift of consciousness. We can intervene in our own growth. We can choose not to be swept away by the currents of fate or the expectations of society. If we do not exercise this choice, we risk wasting our lives, becoming bystanders in our own stories. We must not carry the baggage of unnecessary pain or meaningless obligations. We must stop running from our fears and instead pause to examine the road we are on. Family is the first school of love, and often the most difficult one. It is where we learn about connection and conflict. I have seen families where silence reigns and affection is withheld, creating wounds that last a lifetime. I have seen the damage caused by a grandmother who coldly rejects a child's gift of wildflowers, crushing a small spirit with a single cruel sentence. These moments shape us, but they do not have to define us forever. We can heal. We can learn to love better than we were loved. We can choose to make our own homes places of warmth and conversation, rather than prisons of obligation.
Today, we seem to have lost trust in our instincts. I see young parents terrified of their own children, running to experts and psychologists for every minor issue. We have forgotten that the greatest teacher is often our own intuition. Parenting is a heavy responsibility, yes, but it should also be natural. We treat children as projects to be managed rather than souls to be nurtured. We fill their schedules but empty their hearts of simple, quiet connection. A child needs to be allowed to just be, to observe a beetle in the grass or stare at a wall without being constantly stimulated or analyzed. I look at my own life now with my twin granddaughters. Their arrival brought chaos and joy, doubling the work and the love. Watching their older sister navigate jealousy reminds me that emotions are raw and real. When she claimed a doll for herself, insisting it was her and her mother, ignoring the twins, we did not scold her. We understood she was protecting her world. Love in a family requires this kind of patience and humor. It requires us to be present, not just physically, but emotionally. It is about creating an environment where everyone feels they have a place, where they are worthy simply because they exist. This sense of worth, this self-esteem is the armor we wear against the world. If we believe we are valuable, we will not let others mistreat us. We will not settle for relationships that diminish us or jobs that crush our spirits. We teach this to our children not by lectures, but by how we live. If we live with fear and suspicion, we teach them that the world is hostile. If we live with hope and openness, we teach them that life is a gift. Ultimately, we are all seeking balance. We are trying to reconcile the person we were born as with the person we have become. We carry the scars of the past, but we also carry the capacity for renewal. I refuse to let my spirit become rigid or bitter. I will continue to look into the mirror and see not just the passage of time, but the accumulation of life. I will continue to build my house day by day, knowing that while I cannot control the wind or the rain, I can make sure the hearth inside is warm and the door is open to joy. We must own our stories with all their flaws and beauty and step forward with the courage to be fully ourselves.
Chapter 3: Taming so as not to be destroyed. I believe that what we achieve in life depends largely on the extent of our expectations and our faith. Generally speaking, we are rarely truly satisfied. I am not referring to material things like money, cars, or houses, for human desire for such things is endless. I am speaking of the true values of humanity, like ethics, loyalty, friendship, love, and happiness. We are not so cowardly that we cannot peek out from our shells to see that, while we hide, there are wonderful things like the future, confidence, and life itself inviting us out. Even if few realize it, everything changes, evolves, and renews itself every day. We are truly better than what we think of ourselves. Years ago, while contemplating the themes of maturity, I organized discussion groups for women. These were women of the pioneer generation, much like myself, who had no precedents to follow regarding the world we lived in compared to our mothers. We discovered that the hardest part was realizing we still undervalued ourselves. Anxiety seemed inherent, a feeling of uncertainty about our worth and potential. We discussed the fine line between love and resignation, between generosity and self-destruction. We learned that we can open new doors and break down old ones at any age. We must make our own decisions and establish new routines, even if it means renegotiating the unspoken contracts of our lives. The central question often returned to loving relationships. For many women raised to please others, it was difficult to build positive relationships where they were not subservient. A wife who was always submissive or a mother who was always present often evokes guilt and hostility in others rather than love. Changing this dynamic is a miracle, but it is possible. We realize that some scars are permanent, requiring us to be kind to ourselves and accept reality. However, maturity gives us a new perspective, a safe distance from which we can understand factors we could not see before. We can change our way of living based on forgiveness, even if it is just forgiving ourselves. Later, I included a group of men in these discussions. Surprisingly, their results were shockingly similar to the women's. They doubted their choices, hated the reality of aging, and feared losing their power and health. They felt angry that they could not stop working because their families depended on them. Many felt isolated in their own homes, pushed to the margins by the special bonds between mothers and children. Men often retreat into silence because they fear disappointing women with their vulnerabilities. We need to bridge this gap because there cannot be true dialogue between a master and a servant. I often think about the concept of the perfect couple. To me, this means two individuals treating each other with the kindness of best friends, blending this affection with the pleasure that distinguishes friendship from romance. It involves accepting the other person's humanity without resignation. If we only use our partner as a prop to secure our own dreams, the relationship will collapse when storms arise. If we want a healthy marriage, we must propose to live our remaining days building a sincere and significant intimacy. Love is an elaborate process that must withstand changes on all fronts. When the initial intensity passes, we can begin to love in a different, perhaps more beautiful way, offering each other spiritual support and respect. But if a relationship cannot be saved, it is better to break the bonds than to let a marriage become a prison sentence where two people destroy each other. I use fables to illustrate these truths because they reflect reality. There is a story of a man who grew wings. At first, he was terrified, but then he found a practical use for them. His wife, however, only saw them as a deformity, a posture problem to be fixed. It was only when he met a lover who also had wings that he felt truly seen and accepted. This story reminds us that love allows us to see our true selves. When we choose a partner, we are often choosing what we think we deserve based on our own inner state. One of the causes of our frustration is that we live in a culture that worships youth and physical beauty over the mind. We treat time as an enemy that destroys us, rather than a companion that allows us to mature. We must overcome the idea that living is a process of degeneration. If maturity is the result of youth and old age is the result of maturity, then life is a natural weaving of reality. We must stop fighting time and start taming it. We should not view ourselves as waste products as we age, hiding in the shadows. Instead, we should embrace the changes in our bodies and minds. A middle-aged or elderly body can still be healthy and harmonious. It is cruel to compare ourselves to how we looked 20 years ago. Happiness is a word that has become worn, like a stone in a river, but we must find its true meaning again. It is not about constant excitement or consumption. It is about identifying our own melody in the noise of the world. Some people never find this music. Others cannot keep up with the rhythm of their own lives because they are too busy hiding their true selves. But if we listen, we might find a tune that allows us to dance with our own love for life, rather than dancing with the scarecrow of prejudice and illusion. Life is reflecting in a mirror, and we must ensure the image is not just a ghost. We have a life not just to endure, but to make beautiful, to reprogram, and to perfect with our conscience. We do not need to create miracles, but at the very least, we must spread our wings and fly. Chapter 4: Loss but not losing oneself. Time has taught me not to trust death too much, but instead to cultivate joy in the garden of my own life. I remember a young girl who once tried to end her life because she felt there was absolutely no hope left. We have all lived through days when dark clouds covered the sky, and we have all felt the weight of despair. While some people are naturally more pessimistic, collecting stories of disaster to share with friends, others try to see life through rose-colored glasses. I believe in a realistic middle ground where we can love humanity despite its flaws and choose to survive our trials. Depression might strike, but there are 1,000 ways to escape it, from therapy to simply taking a walk, adopting a pet, or finding a new hobby. Even though time destroys many things, like family, friends, jobs, or romantic love, the best parts remain. They are not just pale shadows, but the fuel that helps us turn around and show our colors to the world. We must retrieve beautiful memories from the past and bring them into the present to light our way. As I grew older, I realized that I had changed physically. I am no longer the young girl I once was, but I do not want to turn back time. I prefer to live with humor and the knowledge that those who love me will continue to do so, regardless of the changes in my appearance. People often ask what the benefits of getting older are. I tell them that I have found more joy in my work. When I wrote my first novel at 40, it was a terrifying thrill to expose my inner thoughts to the world. Now, with a loyal readership, I no longer feel the anxiety of needing to prove myself. I do not feel envy toward my colleagues because I know there is room for everyone. My heart still beats and leaps just as it did when I was 10. I have learned that middle age is not a time to stop, but a time to restructure and start anew. This is the ripe age, the fruit of a painful yet happy journey of discovery. There is a question of how we limit ourselves based on age. Why should a single woman not buy a large house if she wants to? We need space to reflect and reinvent ourselves. We must not shut ourselves away in a cave just because society expects older people to retreat. We must use quiet moments to recharge so we can desire and engage with life again. Whether it is using a computer to connect with the world, traveling, or learning something new, we have choices. We should not let the frozen state of our souls chill the life around us. We must prepare our spirits to understand that old age is not a process of decay, but of transformation. It is foolish to think that only youth has the right to happiness. I have seen elderly people who are difficult and demanding, but I have also seen those who find joy in simple things like books, music, and nature. We must own our time and not let society dictate that we are finished just because we have reached a certain age. When I spoke to a group of psychologists about loss, I told them that loss is painful and we cannot avoid it. Grief is necessary. If we do not grieve, the pain is buried, but its roots go deeper and block our vitality. We need inner strength to face tragedy. Comfort from others is temporary. The real strength must come from within. Losing a loved one forces us to look deep into our souls. We learn to find ourselves and incorporate the best parts of the person we lost into our own lives. Death is not a subject to be feared, but understood as part of life. It walks with us from the moment we are born. The secret is that death makes life worth living. Because we will all disappear one day, we must be brave enough to speak of love and live generously today. Even when we lose romantic love through betrayal or rejection, we must not let it destroy our philosophy of life. There are always new opportunities for love, whether with a partner, family, friends, or new interests. I have learned to reclaim the lessons of my childhood that adulthood made me forget. I enjoy being alone, looking at words in a book, and listening to the sounds of my house. Solitude is not the same as isolation. My home is full of affection, and I open my doors to friends of all ages to share stories. I am not surprised by much anymore, but I am still moved by life. Maturity has taught me to love in a healthier way, with less vanity, but just as much joy. I do not need to create miracles. I only need to spread my wings and fly. Chapter 5. Time to Live. I have often thought about writing a small, practical book on the constant reinvention of our own selves. In it, I would tell myself, first and foremost, not to feel helpless or afraid. Life is not a cup that slowly drains until it is empty. Instead, it is a cup that we drink from, but never truly runs dry. If we keep a clear head, we can look around and look inside to find a quiet space amidst the rushing current of daily life. We live surrounded by the noise of dating, shopping, technology, eating, and drinking, often engaging in relationships without love or settling into bitterness and complaint. But thinking deeply about oneself is the only way to pierce through this shallowness. If we hide in a corner and cover our faces, we will never hear the rustling wind of the forest of life. We might miss the festival simply because we are too afraid to weigh our losses against our possible gains. We are guests in a cycle much larger than ourselves. In this movement, every disaster and every moment of beauty has meaning, acting as different stages in a process. We are part of this, like trees in a forest. Some are cut down when they are most beautiful and strong. Others cannot grow and eventually fade away. Some survive for a long time, perhaps twisted and longing to return to the earth. Yet they retain their dignity and beauty within their own circumstances. I have spoken about how time passes, taking things away and giving them back like the tide. It does not drown us unless we allow it to. Time is not just a force of decay, but a space for growth. We must tame this flow to avoid being destroyed by it. I have explored gains and losses, realizing that their definitions change based on our potential and how we choose to view the world. I ventured to say that I needed to find a specific voice to speak with my readers, just as every person looks for a melody to live by. Sometimes the rhythm we hear is false and shallow. Other times it is a joyful tune born from the soul, from our deepest desires, and from our true nature. Sadly, some people never find that music. Others cannot keep up with the rhythm of their own lives because they do not hear it or understand it, often because they are too busy hiding the truth. But there are those who discover that melody and dance with it. They glide through notes that are fast, soft, passionate, serious, tragic, and then fast again. These people do not dance with the scarecrow of prejudice and illusion. They dance with their true love, which is life itself.
I find it is easier to hear this joyful music at 40 than at 20, and even easier at 60. I imagine that at 80, there will be enough silence and internal space for that melody to settle and sing out loud. I return to the idea that the world does not exist without human perception. It is our awareness that shapes the universe into form. Our thinking brings order to the world. Living, and perhaps even dying, is the act of reinventing oneself in every single moment. There are countless reflections in the mirror of life. Some are just illusions, like islands made of foam that sink when we step on them. Others hang loosely on high branches, out of reach of our humble hope. Some shine brightly, yet we often fail to notice or trust them. We possess a life not merely to endure or survive, but to make it more beautiful day by day. We must reprogram ourselves, sooner or later, and perfect our lives with our conscience. We do not need to create miracles. We simply need to spread our wings and fly high. As I finish this book and turn off my computer, I realize something profound. Writers may use endless paper. Musicians may write countless lyrics, and artists may create forms with light and color to describe the contradictions of the human soul. Art may dance before us and sing our inner feelings until our final lucid moment. Yet the true essence of life remains without a name or shape. It is simply discovery and fear. It is the heaven and hell within each of us. If you like this video, please click the like and subscribe button so that more people know about this video. Thank you for your support. Wish you a happy evening with your family. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.